I always go back to the start with people. So obviously you're a Muay Thai fighter, you fought all different sorts of styles, kickboxing, even had to go with MMA and stuff like that. But where did you, was you fighting when you was a kid? Know what I mean? Was you on the street fighting as a young lad, or did you just get into like martial arts?
No, I actually hated violence growing up, ironically. I was always very intrigued by it, though. For myself, I didn't like the kind of emotional thing, like people being angry at each other, but I liked the competitiveness about it. I was always very athletic, but I hated team sports. I hated having to rely on other people. And I always thought about fighting, it was like, oh wow, it's just you and the other guy in there. You don't have a team to rely on or anyone to back you up. So it was something that always intrigued me. I thought about boxing for a long time, but I love martial arts too, and I never really saw any fighting that was similar to boxing, where they're just real fighting. It was always kind of point sparring and that kind of thing when it came to martial arts fighting. And then one day in '95, I was in Vegas. I was watching ESPN at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and a Muay Thai fight came on, and I was just like, "This is everything that I've been looking for." I was just blown away, and I'd never seen anything like that. It still took me almost 10 years to actually get started, but that's what really triggered that. And it was always something that was in the back of my mind, like I'm going to do this one day, but I was too busy partying and pissing my life away and all that stuff, and using all those excuses that everybody gives themselves, like I'm never going to be able to do it. I'm never going to be able to make it. I already felt like I was too old at the time. I was just a teenager. But then one day I was just like, how much of your life have you wasted already? And just because you're afraid to do this thing, I realized that all that stuff really just boiled down to fear. I was afraid. All these excuses that I had are you're just afraid. So I finally just made up my mind, and I was like, I'm gonna go after this regardless of what happens, and never look back.
So is that what the gap was down to? Because you say you saw it in '95, and when did you have your first fight? Did you say 2003?
I was 23. Yeah, so 2003
Yeah.
was
So
when I
what
had my
was
first
was
fight,
that? What
September.
was the gap? That's an 8-year gap. How come you
Yeah.
never got into it sooner?
As I said, it was all those excuses I was giving myself. That I couldn't make it. That I felt like I was too weak. I was too skinny. It's like I'm not. I never thought of myself as that kind of person, because I didn't. Like I said, I didn't like violence. I hated when I saw people like angry at each other and upset at each other. But I loved that kind of physicality of it. And it was just something that, when it all came down to it, I think it just scared me. I wasn't ready to give up what I would have to give up in order to do this. I was gonna have to stop partying. I was gonna have to start drinking. I was a full blown alcoholic by the time I was probably 20 years old. So that was such a huge thing I was gonna have to do, and I didn't think I would be able to do it. I thought everyone was going to laugh at me. I didn't even take myself seriously. So I never even told anybody about this. One of my friends was the only person I ever told, and he actually encouraged me. He was like, "Why don't you do it?" And I gave him all those excuses and everything, but he was like, "I think you should." And he actually ended up passing away in '99. And when he died, I promised myself that I would do this, but his death sent me really over the edge of that dark road I was already on. And it got really bad for a couple of years. And every time I would see a fight, it was like it sparked that thing in me. It's like, you're wasting your life. You're not going after this. What are you doing? What are you doing? And one day, it was going into 2003. I almost got in this near-death car accident. I was inches away from what would have been a near-death car accident, and I realized like I shouldn't even be alive anymore. And I looked at how much of my life that I had wasted, and I couldn't live like that anymore. I was like, it doesn't matter how many doubts you have, how many fears you had, all the reasons you have not to go after this. You're either going to go one direction or the other, and you know where that other direction is going to lead you. You're not going to make it out of that road. So I just was like, all right, let's go. So I started going that way, and I had to just embrace those fears. It's like we feel like the people that go after things aren't afraid. Like they don't have nerves, they don't have doubts. You see everybody in the spotlight, like they don't deal with the same things that you deal with where a lot of times they deal with way worse stuff. So it's just learning that you have to embrace that, and you have to face that, and you have to move forward regardless of how you feel. That's what took me so long to finally get started, and just, all right, we got to do it.
But to be honest, that story was so inspirational. Thank you for sharing.